And good morning. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I am so grateful that you're here. Welcome to the Daily Medicine Transmission for October 7th, 2021, and fully attuned to the cosmic rhythm. We're going to talk about frequency. We're going to talk about vibration. We're going to talk about time today. So welcome back, everyone. And if you're new to this channel, welcome. I truly appreciate each and every one of you, and it's so great to have you here as part of this collective experience. So a couple things we're going to talk about today. The usual, right? The astrology, of course, our 4D modality here, plotting variables in time and space and being able to see the full picture in front of us, giving us a template to actually resonate with. And this is a big theme right now. So we're going to do things a little out of order today. I'm going to save the reading for the very end because what it is presenting is it's presenting not so much a warning, but a potential outcome if we don't take what is showing up right now as a very significant gift. It's like a tuning fork, a cosmic tuning fork just went off and allowed all of us to really connect into it. But what we do with that is, of course, up to our free will and free choice. And that's going to make a big difference on how we experience the unfolding of this reverberation of this cosmic tuning fork. So we're going to look at the Schumann Resonance and the graph of the magnetosphere, or the magnetosphere in real time, as it is being graphed for us. We're going to listen to just a couple minutes of a segment about time and how time is not linear, but it's circular. Talk about the astrology, of course, and then we'll get into the reading to show how we can make the best use of this. So a couple other random but not so random things, and maybe did we speak about this yesterday? I'm not sure. There's a lot of information, and if you really do track the mainstream news, primetime TV, all of the main channels of information, I feel like we talked about this yesterday, and I'm going to bring it up again because it's important. If you really track what's being pushed out in these mainstream channels, you start to see what they are attempting to program into us and to groom us for a certain outcome. This was very evident to me in April of 2020 when I started to notice a very significant uptick in news articles that were focusing on police shootings against unarmed African-American individuals. And I was just like, oh, that's interesting. Did you notice the uptick? And within a month, right, we had the incident with George Floyd. So when you start tracking these things with a critical eye, with objective perspective, with the idea here that we're bringing in empirical knowledge and not necessarily utilizing it to create or synthesize or alchemize the situation, it's something to consider where the nodes are. We're going to talk about this today. Where the nodes are and where we're headed and where we're headed away from, and how tempting it is to hold on to where we've been because it's familiar territory and it's something that we have collectively mastered on a karmic level already. Not to say it won't come back around again, because it always does, but right now, in terms of where we are headed, it's much more about the truth, right? And the truth in terms of knowledge, empirical data that we are being asked to interface with. Wow, that was weird. I am seeing, I don't know if anybody else is seeing this too, but I mean all kinds of little critters and little fae characters are just, in my periphery a lot in the last couple of days. So, and again, this is why I want to bring this up. So if you've noticed, there's been an uptick in the prime time, in articles, in things that you see posted on the internet about UFO. And so it's important to realize, number one, that we are being groomed and programmed for some level of disclosure, probably as a distraction is my guess, right? And to keep that in mind, because as much as that is in its own way a benefit, something that is something that many people have been waiting for in some ways. Just keep in mind that it is most likely going to be utilized as a distraction or as a way to manipulate people into a certain perspective. And this really does fall into the concept that we're going to talk about in the larger scheme here about being attuned to a certain frequency, how the oscillation of all of it, any kind of wave function, and you could argue that our consciousness and our mental perceptions, our feelings, all of it functions on a time wave. So just keep that in mind, because what I do see is that despite the last 2 years of really trying to open up the global population to not only the truth and the awakening process, but also to in that process teach people and show people and model to people how to operate within frequency and how to utilize that. And I still see people getting caught up in what they see in the mainstream, as if those channels aren't still controlled and maintained by a very specific group of people that have a very specific agenda. So just keep that in mind as we are going down this road, that yes, we may be getting disclosure very soon, but who is disclosing and what are they disclosing, and how is it going to benefit those who are disclosing? Because that's a very important question to ask. And when you are receiving these signals and this information from a certain source, and it's being beamed right into your subconscious, into your own sense of not even your thoughts, right? This is how TV and social media works, right? Hacking into your shadow, getting into those areas, and then, planting their own seeds. It's just something to consider. If you want to break out of the matrix and you want to hack your own shadow, you have to be vigilant in doing it all the time. And that also does, that's just half of the equation. The other part of it is that you also have to be aligned with the frequency of a reality that you do want, and that you want not just for yourself. This is important too. This is a big thing that came out in the reading, that if you are taking these gifts and taking these perspectives and taking this a very fundamental aspect of our power as humans and as energetic beings, and using it for your own benefit, even if you think that is that you're doing the right thing or the best thing. This is why it's so important that we're really being honest with ourselves and what our trajectory is and what we're here to do, and where we should be putting our energy. Anyway, we'll get in that to the reading, because I don't want to get into this. This is not about being judgmental or shaming people. This is really all of us having to really step into this space and be mindful about it. So, I get my own information. And speaking of UFOs, my God, for those of us who have been getting contact for how long, like actual contact through telepathy, through the astral realm in our sleep, right? And I'm not talking about voice to skull technology where you're literally having voices downloaded to you. I'm talking about real telepathy that is, through your very distinct channel that you have, and dream state. This is where a lot of my contact comes from. Not all of it, but most of it's coming through that realm as well. So, many of us are already having, especially star seeds, right? This is not new, and disclosure is not going to be this mind-blowing thing, but we also have to, where is our resonance with this whole conversation? And that is important. Are we resonating and vibrating with a specific outcome that is not ours and being kind of led into it? And I would say that is that's a big pitfall right now. Huge. And like I said, I received this whole structure of a narrative or an information, however you want to put it. I received it in my own way, and it was very, very clear. And when we look at the actual Schumann, we're going to start extrapolating. And I do feel like that yesterday was this tuning fork, right? Something struck this tuning fork, and it really amplified very significantly this particular frequency that we have the opportunity to connect into and to resonate with, right? And this is where we attract in. And there's lots of different things that do this. And when we listen to this one clip about time and frequency, it'll start to make sense. So I'm going to check in with the stream real quick and make sure that it's running. It looks like it is. Everything is good. So let's start with the Schumann. So I'm going to minimize myself here. Here we go. So, and I'm going to scroll down as we look at this so that we get the full picture. So as we see right now, right, this is the roughly where we at. So the yellow down here is the time at UTC, or Universal Time. So it's about 5 hours ahead from the East Coast of the United States. So just something to keep in mind here. Now, this is pretty significant, right? You see that the amplitude is, at the beginning of yesterday, or that's about noonish yesterday, right? And then this is about the time, I would say between noon and, this looks like 9 a.m. UTC, like this is where the new moon was happening. There was a spike here in amplitude, and then it dropped off, and it was pretty mellow. And then yesterday it started to amplify again. And then there was this one significant, very aligned spike in amplitude all along all four graphs here. Very specific, very aligned. It almost looks artificial, but it looks very intentional. Now, there was a solar flare that left the sun yesterday into today, but it's not a coronal mass ejection. The magnetic field of the planet really buffered it. There wasn't a huge impact from that. This seems very intentional, whatever this is, right? Which is the sense that I get is this tuning fork, okay? Now something wherever it's coming from was like, here, let's tap this, and it's going to reverberate and at a specific frequency. And as we're going to see, speaking of frequency, we're going to move down here. And the ads are really annoying. I'm so sorry. It's just what happens when you want to publish on WordPress or whatever for free, the Schumann Resonance. So what you see right before this happened actually was, here's the quality, the chart, Q, right? And so the quality of it is kind of variable. You see the red graph had dipped down on the 5th, and then you see that the quality kind of around the 6th, right? We're looking at, this is midnight on the 6th, and we see here that there was a big dip, right, in the quality from up here. These were all kind of functioning around each other, and then there was a big dip, and there was some action, and then look at this. It all spiked up right before this, so the quality of it increased. And as you can see here, at exactly the same time that this massive spike here, this very consistent spike, I wouldn't call it massive in amplitude. It wasn't. It was just like a very intentional, very pointed spike right here, and you see that the quality then dipped down almost immediately right after that. But look at this. This is the actual frequency of the Schumann. It shot right up to almost 8, and then it has been significantly up here, and then now it's starting to drop off again and mellow back out. And there's been a few ripples here in amplitude, but the quality here has been pretty mellow, except for right here in the red that's come down. So what we see here is something very intentional and very pointed that happened at a very specific, so 1700, that's 5 p.m. UTC. So you're looking at right around noon East Coast time, or in the morning on the West Coast. And you see that the quality spiked up right before it, like kind of prepping for it in some ways. And then the frequency shot up almost to 8 hertz from all the way down here, closer to 7. So something very significant happened. happened. And in terms of my own guidance system, what I will say is that we received some whole new template came in. And for me, it was very much, it was like a scroll of new symbols. And if you are familiar with Reiki at all, they're the symbols that are involved in your Reiki attunements and practice at the higher, levels. Once you get past Reiki 1, you're getting 2 and 3 in your master attunement. There's a number of symbols that are involved in the work and the practice and the attunements. And what I received was a scroll of new symbols, just like one after another after another. And, symbols are the way that we communicate, right? A language, letters, they're all symbols, right? And especially if you look in, the more Asian languages, they appear to be more compared to the, our type of language in English, for instance, or even like your Indo-European type of language, the letters, but they're all symbols and they represent an idea or a sound, right? So they all carry a vibration. So for me, I received this whole scroll of symbols, right? New concepts, new communicative devices, just new vibrations, right? And it's just like one scroll. And it looked very similar to what this looks like, just down the line, kind of like Japanese, but they were definitely not a language or even symbols that I was fully familiar with. So that was just how I got that information, right? And there was other things that went with it that led me to the conclusion that these are not to be mismanaged or used for our own benefit. And some people will do that, and some people are doing that. But it's really important that we be very considerate of what this is so that we do not find ourselves bringing in some experience into our reality here that resonates with somebody else's perspective or somebody else's goal, right? But this was very significant. Like I said, it was a whole new template of symbols, a whole new vibration that just came in. And again, it feels like that tuning fork. If you've ever worked with tuning forks or even just crystal bowls, right? Or Tibetan bowls, the same thing, but it was a strike. It was a very significant, reverberation that we had access to that was given to us in order to give us to tune us, literally to tune us to that frequency. So let's look at, now I want to play for you this, this clip. So let's make sure that we're all on the same page here. And watch, it's important to watch actually if you can, watch the imagery as well. So let me make sure that my mic is off.
We're not even a solid mass. None of us are. Do you know that we have almost 99% of our exterior as a body is covered in bacteria. This is a fact. We are all just a clump of cells that seem to work at the same frequency. And what I see that the Q drops do is tune in to people to think at the same frequency. Does that make sense? Meaning that they all decide to have objective perspective. So one drop that can say, like this one, the first one that we referred to, timestamp 444, Hillary Clinton, getting arrested on Monday. One person viewing that would see it as, oh, maybe that's gonna happen. Another person seeing it will say that's already happened. Another person says, well, it's happening. Time is of your perspective. And if people can understand that your time moves in cadence with events, kind of like, hey, today went by really quick. It's because you're enjoying or you're understanding. Kind of like, I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible because it was a great conversation we had just a couple of days ago on the Chan board with a bunch of my nerdy friends. When you were in class, in high school or whatever, There was always this topic you hated. For me, it was grammar. I suck. I just don't like it. I don't understand the structure of the English language, right? Other foreign languages have more of a structure. The English language is one of the most difficult languages for people to learn because it's not structured mathematically. I'll put it that way. So when you're in a class that you can't understand, time does not go by because you struggle with what's in front of you. So for us, when we see these news that are coming at us, we innately as human beings accept it as fact so that time can move faster for us in that thought.
Jump to the jam, boogie woogie jam slam, bust a dialect, and the woman in command can flow with the sound of the mighty mic master, rhyming on the mic, bring the circuit to disaster. Buku dax per si rock Nike.
Okay, there I am. Okay, sorry guys. So that's just a little tidbit there of thinking about time as not linear, thinking about time as something that we interface with, that we interact with, that we have an impact on. Now, one of the things that I've said is that we are in fact moving towards a singularity point, right? We're at the event horizon of this black hole. There's no escaping it. And no matter what we do as individuals, it's not going to change the timeline that we are all collectively on together, right? And that counters a lot of other perspectives and a lot of the other people who are influencers in this very generalized community of people. So, and that's fine. I'm just letting you know what I've come to based on my research, my experience, my knowing is that we are, and I'm not the only one, we are headed towards a singularity point of something that cannot be stopped no matter what we do. And what we experience is much more related to where we're tuned into, right? And time is a wave function, right? Time is a wave function. Time is a cycle. And with everything in Libra right now, especially the Sun and Mars, they're about to be in a direct conjunction first thing tomorrow or even late tonight. We're dealing with and living through this cycle of time, this cyclical nature that we have to find our still point within. And so with the new moon and with Pluto stationing direct yesterday, we needed to have that still point, like a resting point, in order to be able to fully assimilate or digest something that was coming in. And something very significant came in. And if we do not allow ourselves the rest, the respite, remember that was the Four of Swords. If we do not allow ourselves that still point in order to recognize that significant tuning opportunity, then we miss out on it entirely. And this is going to be a big part of the intuitive reading. So those are just some things that I wanted to share, like grounded into some actual measurable phenomenon with the Schumann Resonance that was pretty significant. Of course, we had our new moon. We had Pluto stationed direct yesterday, so now it's going to start moving forward. We're going to see manifestation of Pluto's work outside of us in our external life that we're interacting with and moving forward. So it does appear to me, and maybe to other people too, I'd be really curious to see how people are experiencing this, that there was a major tuning opportunity, something in the universe, something that is here for our benefit, allowed for, even if it's a natural phenomenon coming from the galaxy itself, which is very likely as well, considering that it's not just our planet, not just our solar system, but the galaxy itself is going through a magnetic shift as well. So something came through that tuned us, gave us an opportunity to be in tune, just like a tuning fork, right? And again, time is relative to our perception, and our perception is based on our perspective, and that has a lot to do with where our own resonance actually is and how we attract and harmonize. It's just like playing music. You can tell when you're in harmony and in tune, right? You can feel it in your body. You can hear it when you are out of tune or it's dissonant. And sometimes that dissonance is written into pieces in order to give a moment of resolve afterwards, or to just create a specific feeling. But when you're in dissonance, you can feel that too. And sometimes we stay in dissonance because it feels better, or we like the dissonance, right? It's the only thing that we know. That's another reason that it may stick around. It requires that we let go of previous identities in some ways. So there's a lot of ways that this can unfold for us, but it seems pretty clear that we had an opportunity to resonate with a very specific tuning frequency that was offered to us. And we would be well advised to make sure that we use it for our highest good, the highest purpose, and not get caught in using it for our own what is really our own personal gain, right? Rather than what we're all here to do together. So let's look at the astrology, actually. We'll start there. I'm going to make sure that we are looking at the right thing before we do that. So here we go. I'm going to minimize myself here, and we'll look at this chart. So I hope everyone's doing well. I'd be curious to hear people's input about what they've experienced or received in the last 24 hours since this new moon came about. So here is our chart for today, which is the 7th. All right, guys. Thanks for bearing with me here. All right. Okay, here's our chart for today. So exciting stuff. So we know that the moon is moving into Scorpio now, like is now technically in Scorpio. Here's another thing. Talk about getting attuned and being in tune. Now that the moon is in Scorpio, boy, we're going to have all the feels, aren't we? The depth of the feeling, the down under of what is hidden, the occult, the esoteric nature, the shadow realm, and our subconscious. This is when we have direct access to it. And this is where it can get very difficult and challenging. And we're gonna see this in the reading too, that what we potentially could be in store for if we don't allow ourselves to be in tune to this frequency in a way that's actually being aware of what is really going on. We may find ourselves with some difficult and sobering realization. So the moon in Scorpio, of course, is going to have us dropping down to the abyss, the seemingly bottomless abyss. And when you have this moon in Scorpio, it can be very difficult to take yourself out of it because sometimes you don't know the difference between you and the depth, and you start to identify with what is down there rather than feeling it as an actual resonance of the power dynamics in our relationships. I mean, that's part of the reason it's so difficult, is because when you get into the underlying dynamics of what we create together, you see what it is, regardless if it's what you want or not. Ooh, there we go. And that can be really, really difficult because you may think you're doing the right thing, and many people do. Many people will do things because they think they're doing the right thing and that they're being given the resources to do so, and really they're actually fulfilling somebody else's plan. They are fulfilling their own ego's desire and not realizing it. There's a lot of ways this can go. But when we have the moon in Scorpio, this is the opportunity to really sink down into it and allow ourselves to have a direct experience of what it is that's at the bottom of the well, essentially, so that we can see it for what it, feel it for what it is, and be aware of the power that we have with each other. That's the thing, is like it goes both ways with Scorpio. The incredible incredible amount of cooperation and communion that comes out of our relationships with each other in a social context, an intimate relationship. Yeah, you have to go down and see the fullness of it, but you also realize how powerful we are together. And so when you bring that truth up to the surface and ignite that fire of Sagittarius, as Venus is now doing, you can see they've both moved. These two feminine energies have now shifted into different signs. So Venus is now in Sagittarius, and the moon is now in Scorpio. So there is this sensitivity on multiple levels that is now shifting gears. And again, you can really feel that between yesterday and today coming forward and being made available to us. So again, it's how and what we do with this that really makes the difference. So, but we still have Mercury in Libra. You're going to see here that the Sun and Mars are in the same degree of Libra right now, which again is about this circular transpersonal piece. It's the idea here that we come to terms with the cycle, the inevitability of establishing these rhythms. There's no way around it. This is part of the social context, is that when we become fully attuned to the cosmic rhythms, right, then we can act with serenity and peace and not push so much, right, and not try to act out. I mean, that's Aries in a nutshell, right, is the acting on our own ego and our own self-actualization and all of the things where Chiron is right now. So the moon and Mars, or Sun and Mars, have moved past Chiron. So that aspect, how we relax, and it's really about relaxing, and it's about giving ourselves the space within in order to allow the dynamic of the wave, right? It has to oscillate back and forth. It has to be in a wave function. That means there's one side of the scale and the other side of the scale. And if we are tense or only focused on one side of the scale, then we don't actually participate, or we're not fully attuned to this cycle or this labyrinth. So this is becoming even more pertinent right now. And then tomorrow, like I said, first thing into tomorrow, the Sun and Mars are going to be in exact conjunction. And so we will certainly have this really, it's when we can activate this and really express ourselves through it, this circular path, this attunement. And so in the meantime, we've been given an opportunity to attune ourselves with it right now. Mercury is retrograde, doing Mercury's thing in retrograde in Libra, so giving us an opportunity to review what knowledge we do have and maybe applying it to our own process, maybe doing some internal review, going back over some information, making sure the knowledge that we have that we're applying is actually what we want to do. And retrograde is a great time to go over things with a fine-tooth comb, to go back and proofread. And in the realm of, balancing the social context, we want to make sure that what we are applying to this situation in terms of knowledge, in terms of information, and how we do that is actually how we want to be doing that. And so Mercury retrograde is a perfect opportunity to be going over this and proofreading our own mechanism for, reason and logic, and applying, specifically with Libra, applying this knowledge in a social context to find balance and peace. So what else do we have going on today? Before the moon moved into, let's go back a little bit. Before the moon moved into Scorpio, we found this morning, right? So, late last night, early this morning, in this space, right, we see that the moon in Libra in conjunction with Arcturus was in a square to a now direct Pluto. So this, of course, these squares, especially cardinal squares, they can really have you kind of like, spin out into a random direction when they meet in it's like getting T-boned, right? So they're going one direction, this is going another direction with some momentum, and then they meet and they can spin out into some other place. And now the moon was in conjunction with Arcturus, which is, they are the wisdom keepers, the Arcturians, the wisdom keepers of the key, of the keys of the universe, the keys of being in balance and harmony with the universe. These are the star seeds in particular that are really, are very much plugged into this. And so we each had an opportunity to also have a direct connection. So either you have Arcturian starseed or you resonate with it, or it's just something that you want to bring into your awareness, because we all get the opportunity to connect to these starseed origins. It's just that if you have it in your chart, then it's something that's going to be really accessible to you and something that you bring into your own resonance. So we're having a direct connection to this Arcturian nature, which, again, with Pluto now direct in Capricorn, it's really having that raw, very powerful, authentic, and really uncomfortable destruction of that which we have built up over time to give us something to stand on, right? Our culture, our traditions, our artistic values, all the institutional framework of Capricorn, the very nature of reality, Pluto now is going to start pulling away and destroying. And so if we're resonating if we're resonating at the frequency that we want to bring, that if we ourselves are in resonance with the frequency of what we want to experience, this is the time to do it. Now, the square here is the discomfort and the friction between feeling into very deeply the entire picture, right? Seeing the whole cycle in front of you, and knowing how to make the most of it, how to organize yourself, organize your relationships, in the face of the entire picture. The friction in that moment with the square comes from the very real and lived experience of Capricorn and Pluto taking it away. So really what it does is just challenge us to stay with that big picture in the face of a necessary destruction. And necessary, inevitable, however you want to look at it, it's here and it's coming. And it's been foretold for a very long time, because all you have to do is track Pluto and you can see what is getting destroyed. So that happened last night. You can even see that late last night into early this morning. And then we find Venus at the very last degree of Scorpio, which is another release valve. It's this way that society allows for us to express really immature energies, despite having access to the depth of the power dynamics in our society, right? In our relationships, what we create together, what resources do we create together, what kind of power do we have when we come together. And Venus being at her detriment in Scorpio has really, challenged us to be sensitive to the swampy realms that we would rather just not deal with. And there's always a tendency to get caught up in bypassing, delusional thinking, getting intoxicated by the illusion. That's all part of Venus, especially in the last 10 degrees of Scorpio. And so as she crosses this threshold, and has crossed this threshold overnight, late last night, early this morning, depending on where you are, there's a sense here that she, through what we value, our relationships, our resources, our experience of the material world around us is really what Venus represents, because it is our desire to feel comfortable. It is our desire to have love. It is our desire to feel good and harmonious. That is how we attract to us what we want. So in this moment of the last degree of Scorpio, it's like through these mediums and our sensitivity to the world around us, there is an outlet. There's a social outlet that's provided that's still within some sort of limitation. And where Mercury is right now in Libra too is a very similar construct of traditional limits that provide for us like a foundation, or certainly some sort of boundary that allows us to express ourselves, but to also stay within some sort of secure type of situation. Now, I'm not saying it boxes us in necessarily, but it's more of a protective mechanism. Both Venus and Mercury in Libra. So what's very interesting about this is that again, this does feel like the tuning of us to this cosmic tuning fork, and allow us to find the outlet for it through our relationships and what's valuable to us, and what allows us to gather what it is we want from the world around us, what allows us to feel safe and secure and comfortable. I mean, that's what Venus really represents. And so if we try to connect directly in some ways, this is providing, like I said, traditional limits. As we get closer to Sagittarius, and Venus moves into Sagittarius, it changes the dynamic completely into, now that we have gone into the depth of this feeling of what's really at the bottom of things, we take that and realize how much power we truly have together, and ignite the spark of the alchemical fire. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. I just want to kind of go through the moon transits here real quick through the day. So then we'll go back to where we are now. So the moon is now in Scorpio. Venus is now in Sagittarius. So as the moon moves through Scorpio, the first thing that's going to happen is there's going to be this quincunx from the moon and to Rahu, or the North Node. So 3 degrees of Scorpio is that first structural like perfection that Scorpio represents, which is very simply, people coming together into a village to raise the house of somebody, right? It's a house raising party, and it's enlisting everybody's cooperation. So it's the feeling of community that's demonstrated by some sort of basic joint effort that we participate in, right? This is a very basic and very fundamental and almost innocent representation of what Scorpio can be, showing how we can actually get things done when everybody comes together, and we are more than the sum. The sum is more than what we can each do individually. That is the power of Scorpio, right? Is how much we can actually accomplish together as opposed to individually or separately. So what's interesting about this quincunx is that what doesn't seem to fit is that the North Node is pulling us in this direction right now that is way more about the intellectual crystallization of reality, of information, of knowledge that's presented to us without any type of emotional attachment to it, without any type of, consideration of how it makes other people feel at this point. It's still very early in Gemini, and as we get closer and closer to Taurus, it becomes more and more feeling based and sensitively based on the material world. But in this moment, this 3 of Gemini, again, the 3 being that first evidence of something that is complete structure, right? The triangle, that is on the outside of the alchemical process, right? Of squaring the circle. So the circle is our infinite selves, right? Our soul and our infinite selves. The square around it is the matrix of material reality, our bodies, right? Our physical reality. And then what comes from those two things, brought together and creating something new is in fact the triangle. It is the perfection that is created from these aspects that don't seem to fit together. The quincunx is that transmutational moment, right? It is the wild card. It is the opportunity to adjust ourselves. It is the trying to shove that round peg into the square hole and being like, I don't know how to do this, right? And this is where you have to bring in your alchemy. So there's something here that we realize, we feel into what we are capable of doing together, but we also have to accept the direction that we are in fact heading to grow, which is it's truly about knowledge right now still. And this is eventually, we'll get to the Pleiadian revival, which will be a whole different, set of circumstances. But in the meantime, we are still at a very base level, working with the crystallization or the structural form of two competing ideas coming together and being able to create something from our knowledge, right? And so it's very formal, and it's very intellectual, and it's very much about, hey, look what we can actually do with information and knowledge and consciousness. It does not account for any feelings. It doesn't account for power. It doesn't account for any of that, except a very strict bringing together of dualistic concepts into, oh, look at what, it's the Hegelian dialectic, but without it being controlled from the outside. It's really just thesis, antithesis. Oh, we can actually bring together and create something new, but it's still in the mind. We haven't gotten to the higher mind aspect, because the higher mind aspect is the South Node, which is the ritualization of the conflict itself, the friction itself. And as we're going to see, Venus is going to cross over this point in the next couple of days, over the weekend, and we are going to have a very sensitive and value-based connection to the ritualization of the conflict. Two people playing chess. Again, remember, it's the South Node. We've mastered this energy, the alchemical energy that Sagittarius represents. Just keep in mind that it's what we are moving away from and heading towards, just thought forms, the crystallization of thought forms, right? Of ideas, of knowledge, right? We haven't alchemized them yet, that's not the direction that we are collectively heading. And this is really difficult because Sagittarius shows us the power of our collective belief systems and how we can actually create institutions and physical reality and the matrix of physical reality through the cohesion. It's like covalent bonds or the lattice structure of actual crystals or minerals in chemistry, right? The sharing, well, in molecules, it's the sharing of electrons to balance their need for balanced charge. But in solids or salts or minerals, it's sharing of, it's the lattice structure that's created from oppositely charged ions that then come together and make the different salts that we have. So that is the essence of Sagittarius, and there's something about the friction and the ritualization of the conflict that we are heading away from, and we're going to have a very direct, like I said, there's going to be some connection to our value system with that, and there's nothing wrong with coming to awareness of that in our bodies, right, in our material reality, in our resources, in our relationships. But remember, that's the momentum moving forward, right, towards this North Node, towards a very, very basic, fundamental knowledge, right, that hasn't been put through any other filters yet. So this right here is important to keep in mind because it's going to come back around when Venus meets the South Node. There's something here about our collective power that we need to adjust our expectations and adjust our own energetics in the face of where we are headed, which is very, like I said, it has a lot, it's everything to do with ideas and knowledge and nothing else necessarily, information and what we can do with it. So the next aspect here, as we move through the day, so we're looking at the evening, early evening, mid-evening, late evening, depending on where you are, is the Scorpio moon squares Saturn, right? Saturn in Aquarius, right? The cosmic egg is starting to crack, and this new mutation of humanity is coming forward, and there's nothing we can, this is Saturn, right? This is, again, time as its function in relation to our perception and to space. And there's no getting around this, right? We are part, and this is why it's so important to be attuned to the cosmic rhythm that we want to see and that we want to bring towards us, because that's how it's like tuning, we're all getting tuned to the same station. This the square here is going to really challenge our ability to take a very deep dive into the depth of ourselves and to the depth of our society and our communal relationships, because in the face of it, there's already something new coming forward. And so this challenge here with fixed water and fixed air, right? Aquarius is air, fixed air, is the tension here of being very fixed in both of these positions, of feeling very deeply, going very deep into the underlying structures of ourselves and society and our relationships, and having to also be at cross purposes with Saturn, which is, again, providing a structure and a foundation, and is cracking open this cosmic egg. And so there's, which is about the social organism. It's important to realize that is what Aquarius represents, is us. It is us as a collective, the social organism, the society, the global society as Aquarius, and the higher connection to that through our higher mind and through our ability to harness the energy that moves through this new social organism that's being cracked open right now. So in the midst of that, while we are sinking deeper and deeper into the abyss of what is and feeling it, definitely feeling it, that tension there is going to, because we'll be really, it's so easy to be kind of focused on and have our attention focused on what's coming out of that egg and the process of it and what it looks like. And, that is, again, why it's important to be very aware and mindful about what's being put out in the mainstream in terms of, it seems so innocuous, but when you start to see it over and over and over, right? News articles, YouTube posts of people seeing UFOs, primetime talk shows, Jimmy Fallon, right? Being able to, interviewing people, other celebrities coming forward and talking about their UFO experiences. It's very scripted. And there's a reason for that. And it's like, look over here at Saturn and this egg. And the real challenge for us in this moment here is to allow our deep intuitive knowing. The moon is what really allows us to vibrate. Just like water crystals respond to the vibration of our voice and our intentions and thoughts, hidden messages in water, we want to go to the depth. We want to get into the depth of what's going on so that we are not unconsciously working against ourselves, right? And working for some other purpose. This is the importance of understanding vibration and how manifestation doesn't come from your thoughts. It comes from your literal vibration in your body and resonating with the frequency that will create the pattern, right? The pattern of reality. And so I thought that 2-minute clip was really cool because it talked about what the actual purpose of the early Q posts was not necessarily to drop information, but it was meant to get people tuned onto the same frequency on a circular time wave, on the time wave itself. So I thought that was really cool. So that's today's astrology. Let's see here. I'm checking the chat. Last night, you saw a UFO. See, I'm telling you, there was lots of contact last night, like legit contact last night. Now, that doesn't mean that what we are seeing or it's important to know for yourself, right? I mean, I feel like too that there is going to be some amount of actual disclosure coming through that is, there needs to be controlled and mitigated on some level. And this is why you're seeing it start to seep out into the mainstream. But I also had tons of contact. I mean, that's where it comes for me. I don't have a ton of visual contact. It's happened, but I have a ton in the astral. A ton. And it was pretty significant last night. I mean, and you start to know what the language is that the communication is happening in, and the symbols that you and your subconscious has for you that makes sense to you. And so, I mean, they presented, and the last time I got presented with symbols was my quote unquote abduction, which happened right after my walk-in experience. So I talk about that in the video about being a walk-in, what that entailed. And it wasn't really an abduction because it wasn't against my will. It was definitely something that I consented to, but I was also really like, I don't like this at all. I was very uncomfortable with the process, going off world, but at the same time, it was very similar to what I experienced last night in terms of the presentation of the symbols, right? Symbols that I have never seen before, symbols that obviously were meant to represent certain things. And something came through pretty specific. And I'm not surprised that you, Emily, saw a UFO last night, especially where you are. That seems even more relevant in some ways. So just consider that there is a lot of there's a lot going on. Now, it's also possible that the electromagnetic field of the planet, is just full of sensors. And so in some ways we're being monitored even at that level. That wouldn't surprise me at all, actually. So maybe none of it's real. Maybe every single thing that we're experiencing is really being mitigated. But I don't believe that. I think that, I do think that there is, well, who knows? Anyway, that's something I'm going to have to think about for a while. Anyway, so let's get into the reading before I go off on too much of a rambling tangent, because that is always a tendency for me as well. So let's see here. We're going to look at this reading, and I'm going to move myself over here so we get a full view. So this is the quote unquote warning. It's not really a warning, but it is. It's make sure that we're using what just this tuning that we just got for the right reasons, and not, this is where free choice and free will come in. And this is why it's so important to have your shadow hacked and be very real with yourself, and what you're using your gifts for. And I think that that's a really, that's a different conversation in terms of what people are doing with their particular gifts as star seeds and light workers. But for now, this is really just showing kind of a general theme. So here is Venus in the fire signs, the causal factor being the Princess of Wands. Now, we do know that Venus is now in Sagittarius, right? And so there is a fire that is burning within us. We see the power. We've been infused with it in some ways. We've been tuned. And when you've done things like Tantra or Kundalini Yoga, for instance, that wakes that up, you feel the oscillation, you feel more vibratory. Or if you've had access to like a lot of really powerful crystal healing, same thing, it really starts to fill your field. Now, Venus in Sagittarius is, this is playful. This is, potentially burning down, hot and explosive, potentially burning down the object of our desire here. But it's also passion and joy of life, enthusiasm, right? And Sagittarius, the very first degree of Sagittarius is kind of like waking up what we are here to do in the first place, right? It allows us to connect to the fire. Now, Aries fire is the electrical spark, right? Leo fire is the solar fire or nuclear reaction, the energy released from a nuclear reaction, okay? So that's the way to represent it. And Sagittarius is just like your basic fire, your basic coal fire, some sort of organic material that's burned and is a catalyst for a chemical reaction in another way. That is what Sagittarius really represents. It's the friction that causes the fire under the cauldron that then is your alchemical process, tempering all your two opposite perspectives down into to dissolve it down into one mass and then have it come back and create something new and something valuable, right? It's turning lead into gold, for instance, right? The whole Philosopher's Stone. So there's a certain amount of enthusiasm and courage and real passion and dancing in the flames that's represented here. And especially now that Venus is in Sagittarius, we're going to really feel that optimism in our who and what we value, in our sensitivity to the world around us, optimism, what we're here to do together, right? The power, or we've gone into the power dynamics, and now we see and now we feel all of the power that we have to actually make change and to actually create belief systems and the big picture to understand. That is really what alchemy represents from a higher mind perspective, is understanding. And so there's a lot of enthusiasm for this, and kind of you can feel that we've been infused, and you can feel that there is a sense of wanting to dance in the flames and wanting to interface with the object of our desire. And that's where we have to be very meticulous about all of this, because we don't want to get caught up in, number one, burning it down because we're so enthused and so hot and explosive that we just like burn out everything. It's like when you're cooking on the stove and you leave the burner on high and you walk away and you come back and everything's burned, right? We don't want to do that, but that is certainly a potential with this. But there's also a lot of enthusiasm and courage and beauty. So this is our causal factor. Now this is where it starts to get kind of dark. And at first, because I woke up feeling like this. I can't speak for everybody, but I woke up going, oh yeah, wow, that's something happened. Like we got something came in and attuned us that's allowing us to get into this cosmic rhythm. Wow, that was pretty substantial. And then when I did the reading, I was just like, what is this? Like, it seems so, but it became clear as the day started to unfold what this was really referring to. And just interfacing with, other people in my life and situations, and then just, looking at the astrology and everything that came out in my own filter system and perception. And that's how sometimes I know that these readings are collectively more accurate, because they don't always reflect how I feel. Sometimes they do. And sometimes I'm just like, well, I don't feel this way, but so that's interesting. But you can see here that right in the heart of the matter. So we have this Venus in the flames, right? The Princess of Wands. There's such an enthusiasm and almost an innocence, and the dancing in the flames, like, oh, look at all the power we have. From a sensitive standpoint. Now the moon's in Scorpio now, so just here we are, right? The Nine of Cups is reversed, or this is happiness, but when it's reversed, I mean, the risk of self-indulgence is pretty significant, because you have Jupiter endlessly expanding in Pisces with absolutely no boundaries, right? And so when it's upright, this is so beautiful and it's so fulfilling, like true happiness. Now, when it's reversed, the risk of self-indulgence, the temptation to enjoy the happiness but forget the reflection. Oh, the moon in Scorpio, my friends. Here we are. Complacency, some vanity. These are just some of the themes that are encompassing this particular energy right now. So the temptation to enjoy the flame, right? And the happiness and the optimism, and like, yes, there's a temptation to enjoy it, but not reflect on anything, not actually direct any action towards the outcome that we truly want for everybody, not just ourselves. Or complacency, right? Just being like, oh, well, that felt good, but I'm not, what am I going to do? Or how am I going to make any use of this? There's a couple different ways here, but Jupiter in Pisces, expanding endlessly, larger than life, with no boundaries in the cosmic social order. We have to be very mindful of this. It's a very substantial message. What comes in, and this is heightened or reinforced. The light of the world also being reversed at the root here. So where are we drawing our personal power from in this state here is not answering the door to our higher self. That is pretty significant too when it's reversed. So our personal self is focusing on the details of our life instead of our inner work and our spiritual priorities, right? So we take this blast of energy that we just got, and this happens a lot with people who, oh man, after being a massage therapist specifically for a really long time, and people become almost addicted to that feeling. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying the feeling, right? I mean, I understand it completely, and this is why getting massages on a regular basis. But what I found was that people who would not actually take that and use that as like, oh, here's a template for how I could possibly feel more often if I institute these particular practices, or on my healing journey from, a car accident or a major illness, you don't actually do the work. And so this is showing that when we're not drawing our power from our inner and spiritual path and priorities, and we're not putting our mission and our higher self up front, but in the background, just to keep focused on what is in our personal life. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't focus on what's in our personal life. I mean, it is a microcosm, macrocosm situation, right? But it's so clear that, what we're going to take out of this situation, if we are not rooted in the highest resonance of where we're all going as humanity, it can really, we can really dissipate this energy very quickly. And we see here that, so that's number 10, right? And then the next one is, in fact, number 11, also reverse, the Ark of the Covenant. So even on our conscious awareness is and the release of this energy is showing that we are, there's the potential to be breaking our contract, avoiding our karmic work, avoiding actually reflecting and getting deeper into what we're here to do, knowingly choosing to be directed by your fears of lack or fear in general instead of your mission. There's a lot of ways this can go. But it does seem to me that we have to be very careful with who we trust with our valuable energy right now, okay? Because they may be seeking to do us harm or be neglectful. And it's very easy to just give it away when we are not actually in tune and in line with our higher mission and what we're here to do, especially as starseeds. It's really important that we do not take that for granted and that we don't abuse why we're here and the gifts that we have as a result. And it's not because starseeds and light workers are better. They're not. That's the whole, and as soon as you think that, I mean, you've lost the whole purpose of why you're here. It's about holding the resonance of where humanity is really meant to be going as a whole and energetically. And we had that infusion, that tuning fork was massive. And we've been given some very significant communication and significant energetic templates that we would be really I really hope that we don't abuse them, because if we do or misuse them, here is where it's going, right? Or trust people that we shouldn't necessarily be trusting. That's the thing about Venus, right? Venus and Sagittarius, this cosmic optimism of like, yeah, we can do anything. And like, yeah, disclosure is coming. And like, oh, it's even on Fox News, it's just like, be mindful. We have to be vigilant at every moment and realize that those channels, those purveyors of information, their intention has not changed an iota. Nothing has changed on that level. So just be mindful of that, because where it's headed with all of these things combined, oh, this is not good, right? The Three of Swords, this is a sobering realization. And it is considered sorrow, right? And it's sorrow because we have a painful realization by analyzing what other people prefer to ignore. It's hard decisions that have to be made, or losing beautiful but false illusions. And those false illusions became very clear to us, as uncomfortable as they have been with Venus and Scorpio. And now that the moon's going to trail behind her in the next 2 days, we're going to have a very deep connection to what that all represented. And this is a detection of deceit and treachery as well. So as dark and as depressing as this card is, it's showing us what to expect with all of these things combined, which is not being focused on our karmic work, not taking the gifts that we've been given and applying them to the larger context of humanity, to take that resonance and use it for ourselves. And this is why the Draco starseeds are so important. And as you're going to actually see, is that where the moon is in a square to Saturn in that degree of Scorpio, that is a Draco marking right there, 6 to 7, 7 degrees Scorpio. So either side of it is still going to activate it. And so again, it's about getting into the depth, and that is getting into the depth of ourselves and going deeply into the basis of ourselves, which is our sacral area, which is our Kundalini, and really knowing what's there rather than, being kind of flippant about it or just being kind of naive, because that's the princess is naive, right? It's naive. And even Venus, for all of the beautiful things that she represents archetypally, is that she is she's not very thoughtful. It's really about satisfying herself at every given moment. And in Sagittarius, we're going to want to satisfy this collective paradigm that we can create anything. And it's the ritualization of the conflict that is shown on the chessboard that is really what allows for the Hegelian dialectic to be manipulated, right? Problem, reaction, solution. So all of this is coming together into this moment here, and we have a real choice point. Do we take that tuning and allow it to resonate at the highest purpose, or do we take it and we give it away, right? Do we give it away for something else and inadvertently or naively trust something that really has never deserved our trust? And in fact, we're supposed to be headed in a direction that is about knowledge and awareness of information, and not necessarily the synthesis of the big picture, because we have to create a new big picture through new knowledge. So, man, let's look at the guidance before I walk away from this, because this is pretty incredible. So first of all, the Queen of Scrolls in terms of the light of the world, right? We're not answering the door to our higher self knocking, right? We're too caught up in what we're doing in our personal lives. This is where we're drawing our power from. This is what's going on in our subconscious. So she's coming as a guide to walk us through the entryway into deep wisdom and deep understanding. Okay. And it is a phase of deepening understanding. So she's here, and you can see the veil with the scroll, the Akashic scroll here, is very thin, but, and she's holding it, she's presenting it to us, but we have to actually approach, this is something we have to approach and be able to interact with, right? Deepening understanding. And it's going to come through our relationships, our valued relationships. So the gorilla is about taking the time to listen compassionately. So you may find that, if you really are listening to the people you love and you care about and who care about you, and you're nourishing your relationships, you're nurturing them, you may find that that is actually where you want your energy to go. And perhaps that will also lead to a deepening understanding. And so these things are going to work in tandem with each other to help bring you back to your center and what you're here to do. It's not about winning anything. It's not about getting to a certain outcome necessarily. It's about the quality of how we treat each other. And if we are all treating each other as if we are all sacred, then that is when all of the tyranny disappears. And so we have to start with ourselves if we're going to get anywhere. So this is bringing us back to what our higher self is and our work, our mission, whatever that is. And it's different for everybody, of course, in terms of the actual steps that we're taking. But it's very important that we are heeding this potential outcome and this guidance in particular. So when it comes to the arc, right, our commitment, our contract, it's important that we need to, again, take some time away, solitude, right? Allow ourselves to go deep within at an intuitive and energetic level with the moon in Scorpio. And that means we have to kind of, it's like we want to release the constant draw of our attention onto social media and, all of the things that they're pumping out still continuously. And all kinds of influencers, right? Because at the end of the day, I mean, a lot of it has to do still with people maintaining their income and their role. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all, but we all have to eat and we all are here to do something. And so, but what I'm saying is that in order to reconnect with our actual covenant, with our contract, with our higher self, what we're here to do, and not get lost in the details of what's going to fulfill our ego's direction, or even worse, somebody else's trajectory is being influenced by our own energy, is to take some time out. Right? To turn it off. Wasn't it great when social media was down? Oh my God, it felt so amazing. Everything expanded, it relaxed the bottleneck so that we can actually receive information, like actual information, and not take up all of this space. And this is really reinforcing that quite a bit. And also, too, the divine physician, right? I mean, this is pretty standard in terms of like healing and being healed, accessing healing energy from an energetic perspective, realizing that our beliefs and our feelings have a direct connection to our healing and our state of health, right? And you can see that he's sending Reiki to her heart space. He's got the caduceus. He's got the bucket for the well. So we know that water is life. Water is spirit. Water is feeling. This directly correlates to our healing process, right? To have a good attitude about it, to believe that we can heal, to have an energetic relationship with our own cells. All of these things come into play, but we can't do this if we don't take some time out from the inundation of signals as much as we can, right? I mean, obviously we're having this relationship right now where I'm inundating you with my voice and my information, but it's the idea that take some time away in order to reestablish your contract with your higher self, and especially if you're a starseed, what you're here to do, because we're part of the bloodline, whether you like it or not. That's part of being a starseed. We've come in to disrupt their plan by coming into their lineage with the intention of holding the frequency for the awakening of humanity, not the destruction. So it's important that we take that seriously if you are in fact a starseed, because otherwise it's very easy to get caught up in into the signals they're sending out for their own ends, right? And this can get very complicated. And this is something that each person's going to have to figure out on their own and use their own discernment to come to a conclusion. So now that I've said all of those things, I think I'm gonna leave it at that for today. So thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. If you're interested in a reading that's going to show you the rest of the season up to the solstice, you can book that through catalystenergies.net I'm going to create a flyer today so I know what to call it, but it'll be $99 and it shows your chart all the way up to the solstice. And so giving you, because November and December are going to be intense. They're going to be intense. We're going to start eclipse season, Pleiadian eclipse, right? We have a solar eclipse, that's happening, a total solar eclipse whose path of totality is over Antarctica in December. So there is a lot coming down the pipeline. And if you want to know how it's going to impact you and what to peek ahead, you can book that. You can just email me directly or keep an eye out for the flyer that I'm going to post on social media. So guys, I love you. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate you. And yeah, we'll be together tomorrow for astrology. We'll talk about the week's astrology, the astrology for the weekend, the first quarter square, what to expect with that, and just the big themes coming up in the following week so that we can be prepared and be on our path of our mission for being here, right? And not get lost in all the fluff. So, love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.